So let's talk a bit now about basic finishing of the ProForm material, specifically the night guard in this application. You'll notice first off that the ProForm logo is directly placed where it needs to be, which is lingual to the anterior teeth, which gives that nice support that we were looking for. Here's the actual sheet itself. I've cut this material out. This is just a gross cut. You can use a hot knife, industrial scissors, carbides, whatever your preference is, but we want to basically get it to shape. Once we get it to shape, I like to take a product called the Z-burr. And the Z-burr is a carbide that's diamond. It is fluted, and it's run at slow speeds. And that's pretty critical as far as using carbides on these types of materials, because we used heat to form them, and we want to keep as much heat down as possible without generating, and so we do that by not generating friction. Friction's heat. So by using this carbide at a slower speed, about 7,000 RPMs, I find that it cuts extremely well and doesn't melt the material around the borders. I'm using a Handler Synchro Torque 3, works extremely well for this application. I've always been partial to micromotor handpieces just because of their ease of holding them, and I never got used to using a lathe. You could use a lathe, and you could also use the Z-burr in the lathe, but I just prefer to use it in the micromotor handpiece. With that being said, I'm going to turn this unit on, and then I'm going to show you the ease in which this Z-burr cuts through the material and the pre-finished state that it leaves the material in. So I'm going to turn the unit on. And then I'm going to begin to trim. You'll notice that it's flexible and it moves, so you want to keep the carbide as close to the support area, which would be my thumb. You'll notice my thumb is actually supporting the area, and we'll grind down. What we're going to do is we're going to rough shape this, because for brevity, for time's sake, there would be no sense in refining it, but I wanted to show you how nicely this Z-burr cuts the material, how it doesn't burn, doesn't leave any rolls, and at the same time it leaves a nice ultra smooth finish, which is to make it extremely easy for the final finishing of the mouth guard. This Z-burr is also a great application for things like light cured base plate material, soft liner removal, lots of other types of applications where heat and longevity of the cutting edges is desirable. And again, you'll notice how I'm supporting the material with my thumb. And again, it sometimes wants to get away from you, and that's why it's good to either hold it taut. You'll notice I'm holding it taut, or I'll brace it with my thumb. That's just a nice way of keeping the carbide in control, because all carbides want to run. They want to tend to grab and run on you, and you don't want that to occur. So by applying the thumb force and some stability, that keeps the carbide in order. Now, if you don't feel like it's cutting fast enough for you, you can try a little bit faster. This is 9,000 RPMs, but as you'll see, if you don't dial the speed in just right, it will start to melt the surface a little, and it doesn't cut nearly as well. You know, that old adage about more is better doesn't always go true, especially when we're talking about dental materials and applications of heat against certain materials. But as you can see, this cuts just extremely well. And again, I'm just going to rough shape it just to give you an idea of exactly how nicely it really does work and why it should be part of your armamentarium when you're using certain tools to trim and refine our prosthetics. Again, you'll notice, look at how nice it just cuts right through. It's like butter. And again, I work on this for an hour, and you'd be bored of hearing me talk, but I want to just show you how nice it controls. See how nice that controls? And again, I'll do the other side as well. Hold it taunter. Notice as I hold it taut, how the material cuts easier. It won't deform, so don't worry about it. It goes right back to shape. But the nice part is, that it just cuts extremely smooth and it's not burning. And if I wanted to, I could actually bring the heat down, or bring it down just a little bit more as far as speed goes. This is about 6,000 RPMs, and again, I even get a smoother finish. I might have to apply a little bit more pressure to get it to cut, but it still accomplishes the same task. You know, we need to take our times on these kinds of things instead of racing through it, because taking our time will avoid the pitfalls of doing something wrong and having to redo the entire thing. So anyways, I've gone all the way around the periphery, and again, I just wanted to show you how nicely that cuts without really burning. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change, and I'm going to substitute out mini Scotch-Brite wheels. These are Hatho mini Scotch-Brite wheels, and they work extremely well on these types of products. Actually, they work extremely well on all products, because they disintegrate at the same time that they're actually trimming. And the only pitfall on that, of course, is that you have to have an adequate way of removing the particles while you're trimming, because it's disintegrating itself while you're using it. And that's why I prefer to use the Handler Super Sucker for this application. So we'll start on the borders, and we'll start with the medium, what they call the medium grade of Scotch-Brite wheel. And the medium, it comes in 3 grades. It comes in a maroon, which is a fine grade. It comes in a black, which is your medium grade. And it comes in a brown, which is your coarser grade. What you want to try to do is try to run along the edge, on the sides, and on the top. I found that by coming acrosswise on the border, it tends to catch, and I don't want anything to fold or get caught under the turn of the wheel. So by taking and using it down the border, first on the edges and then on the top, what it does is it imparts a very nice finish. And again, I would not be so concerned, and I think people are overly concerned about making this a glossy edge. It's not really that imperative that it's glossy, as long as it's smooth and it isn't irritating. So again, as you'll notice, I'm using the same thumb technique to brace and hold the material in a taut, in a kind of a firm, supportive way, so that it's not running all over the place. And again, it allows me to control the discs, and they work extremely well. You'll notice that from time to time, see how I'm moving my finger back and forth? You get like a little groove in the top of the Scotch-Brite. You could stop the machine if you wanted. You could go back and you could true that out smooth again, but I don't find that it's a real issue. This is usually 1 or 2 and go. I'm going to throw this thing out when I get down to the metal hub, and once I true it down a few times, I'll find that it's not usually worth anything at that point. It does get firmer. You could maybe use it for some other applications. I actually use it to pre-finish borders on dentures, as well as things like night guards and mouth guards and things of that nature. But the beauty is that I'm only running this at 6,000 RPMs, which is great, and it's still, as you can see, it's still cutting. Now it is disintegrating, and I would recommend, if you're going to be using these mini Scotch-Brite wheels, to double up on the protection. The vacuum's good, but I'd even use I'd use it like one of those mouth germ guards that they sell, for people. You see people on airplanes wearing them so they don't get sick, for infection control. But it works extremely well to cut, and I don't want to digress. Now I can cut the center out of here, but for time's sake, I'm just going to leave that out for the time being. But what I really want you to see is how nice that you can start to finish up these edges. Once you get it to this state, I usually go to the fine one. And this is the fine Scotch-Brite wheel. And I just go over this just gently, just to kind of get that nice, finished, smooth appearance. Again, don't be all worked up about this. Now, if you see this and it really bothers you, you could take a small blazer or some sort of butane torch, or even something that's less complicated, and use just a flame torch if you want. You may be able to flame that out so it smooths it up, but I've never found that to be an issue with the patients nor the doctors. As long as they fit well and are comfortable is really where we're looking. The rest of it, the aesthetics, although we like to keep as aesthetic as possible, the fact of the matter is that that's not always possible. And I'll tell you the other thing. You know, I really don't like subjecting these to heat because we use heat to actually form them. And if you start subjecting heat to finish them by, glazing, polishing it with flame, it's just, to me, it's you're taking a chance that you'll deform the material. So I find that this is more than adequate. So, as you notice, the finished result here is that a nice, smooth, non-burned finish all the way around. It didn't take me all but just a few minutes. And again, if I wanted to finish it up with flame polishing, I could do so. I just don't prefer to, and like I say, I don't find that my clients nor their patients actually need to do that. Now, this technique is applicable to not only these mouthguard materials, but it's also applicable to the mouthguard, knife guard, splints, coping. All of those types of materials work extremely well with these finishing products because of the fact that it doesn't take much heat, there isn't much friction, and because of that there's not a lot of heat because there's not a lot of friction, and it's only 6,000 RPMs. And I set the handpiece at a set speed, I don't even use the foot piece, and it works extremely well.